Hi, my name is Amrita, and this is Amrita by the Book, where I talk about all things related to books that interest me. And today, in lieu of a end of year wrap up, which I don't know, I've just talked about so many things that I've done already. So I thought what I'd do is sort of do a list of books that I plan to be reading in 2021. And just to be very clear, these are not books that are being published next year. I wasn't really going to do that particular video, and then I was on Twitter and I came across this tweet that made me realize that 2020 was really hard for, debutante authors, as well as all sorts of authors who depend upon marketing and upon in-person events to promote their work. And that made me sort of rethink my stance about doing a sort of, published in 2021 video. But I think I'm going to keep that for my Bookstagram and just do a variety of individual videos. But this particular video is just me telling you about the books that I know that I'm going to be reading in 2021. So I'm a mood reader, so I can't really do like a month TBR because, it never works out for me. But I do know that there are books that I'm interested in and that I'll pick them up at some point during the year. So I thought this made more sense for me personally. So here are 21 books plus one that have been in my Amazon wish list for a while and will be cleared out in 2021 for sure. I'm just going to go through this list in alphabetical order because I just want to go through them fast because there's 21 books. So first up is A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. And I think this book was recommended by Rosie. I can't remember which particular video it was, but I'm just going to link down to her channel below so you can check it out. And I believe this is a series of books about a woman who studies dragons and then writes about them, kind of like one of those Victorian naturalist diaries. And it sounds really interesting and unique. Next up is The Archangel's Son by Nalini Singh, and I've read Nalini Singh before, and I'm mostly indifferent, I have to say. I don't hate her, I don't love her. She doesn't connect with me the way she seems to do with so many different people. And maybe it's because I just spent my entire teens reading the kind of books that she writes. So maybe I've just got it out of my system. I don't know. But I did realize that I haven't read a lot of angel romance. I don't know why, but I feel like that is a gap in my experience that I would like to have filled. And I've heard so many people talk about this particular series, so I think I'm going to try this. Next up is Symmetry Boys by Aiden Thomas, which is a book that Nat from Nerdy Nat Reads has been hyping up quite a bit. And at first I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds kind of interesting. And then I went and read the blurb and a couple of other reviews, and then Nat kept talking about it, and I was like, oh my god, this sounds exactly my jam. So I'm really looking forward to it. Number 4 is Fast Girls by Elise Hooper, which I think quite a few people on BookTube have been talking about. It's kind of sounds like the girl equivalent of the Boys in the Boat book, which isn't bad. And I'm always ready to read more about women kicking ass, so yeah, I'm gonna read that one. Number 5 is Jade City by Fonda Lee, which is a book I think the first I heard about it was on Daniel Green's channel. But since then, quite a few of my friends have also recommended it, and it sounds really interesting. And I'm always on the lookout for new fantasy authors to read. So yeah, that's going on the list. Number 6 is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, which is now on Amazon Prime as the show called The Expanse. And this is a series that Nikki has been plugging for I think half the year. And I've seen her just go through the entire series, and she's been so into it that I also feel like I should be reading it. Enthusiasm is contagious. I might cheat a little and watch the show first though, because I'm a bad person. Number 7 is Malice by John Gwynne, which is another fantasy pick, and it comes really highly recommended. A lot of people have told me that John Gwynne is one of their favorite authors. I think it sounds really intriguing, and I am kind of excited to check it out. Number 8 is Mediocre by Ijeoma Oluo, and she is one of my favorite writers currently writing. And you might have seen her on the Trevor Noah show where she was talking about this book. I heard about it through Katie, who had it as one of her nonfiction picks, I think, or she was interested in it. I can't remember what it was, but I'll put a link down to her channel as well so you can see all the different things that she recommends and she hauls, because it is a thing of beauty. But I will be there for any book that Oluo writes, and this particular one is about how whiteness is rewarded in America, whiteness and maleness basically, and how increasing amounts of equality just leads to resentment. Number 9 is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, and this particular book has been on my TBR for a very long time, and literally everybody has read it and everybody has loved it, from like Barack Obama to like half of BookTube. And I kind of feel like an idiot for not having read it as yet, and it's the story of this Korean family, and I really want to read it. Sun, who is actually of Korean heritage herself, read it and didn't like it. So I'm just like, But then, you know, when you're not from a culture, sometimes you have an easier time connecting to books about that culture. So I'm still gonna give it a go. Number 10 is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, which is again one of those books that has taken BookTube by storm. BookTube, Bookstagram, BookTwitter, all of it. Everybody that I know who has read this book loves this book. So I really want to know what's up, and it sounds really interesting to me as well. So I'm going to try and read that. Number 11 is The Promise of Blood by McClellan, and I don't know much about this book. I just put it on my TBR because one of my friends who always gives me amazing suggestions, especially when it comes to fantasy, and who has very similar reading tastes as myself when it comes to fantasy, told me that I absolutely have to read McClellan. So I went out and I put this immediately on my TBR, and I will discover what it is once I read it. Strategy. Number 12 is Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. And I'll be honest, when it first came out, I really wanted to read it, and then everybody read it and everybody loved it and everybody talked about it, and it kind of put me off. I know, I'm a total weirdo. But I think by the time, you know, it's maybe like June 2021, I might feel like, okay, time has passed, you know, I feel like a different person, and I might want to read it at that point. So that's why I included it in this list. Number 13 is The Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Now, Mark Lawrence is again one of those authors that everybody recommends. I don't know why I haven't picked him up as yet. I think I will really enjoy him. You know, there's some authors, it's weird. There are some authors who just give off a very gendered vibe. And when it comes to male authors, generally, when somebody is writing a book and it has this incredibly masculine energy, I don't particularly want to read it, especially in literary fiction. It just doesn't appeal to me. But when it comes to fantasy, I'm really into it. And I don't know if I can even define what I mean by like a masculine energy of books. Like, it sounds like hokum, but I swear to God, there is such a thing as a feminine energy and a masculine energy when it comes to books. And Mark Lawrence really has a strong masculine energy about his books, even though I've never read them. Just reading the plot somehow just makes me think that, oh, this is going to be a very male book, but I'm going to enjoy it. I will report back. Number 14 is The 7 Kinds of People You Meet in Bookshops by Shaun Bythell. And this is a bit out of left field. It just sounds really funny to me, so I think I'm going to enjoy it. Next is Sorcerer to the Crown by Zen Cho, and again, this is one of those books that I don't know much about, but comes strongly recommended by a number of different friends who like fantasy. And I guess this is the time for me to reveal that sometimes if I really trust your taste in books, I will 100% just start reading a book without knowing anything about it. In fact, those are some of my favorite reading experiences because I literally have no idea where everything is headed. And then it also really gives me a pure experience because sometimes it's amazing and then sometimes you're like maybe a couple of chapters in and you know exactly what's happening, and then it's a pure disappointment and you just know already that that book is not going to work out for you. Next up is Space Opera by Catheryne Valente, who I think also wrote Deathless, which was a book that was really highly recommended to me. And this particular book also comes highly recommended, and I am really interested to see how it goes. But first, I think I need to finish Deathless. Bad Amrita. Number 17 is Strange Practice by Vivian Shaw, and this is again a recommendation by Rosie, and it is about a woman who is a doctor to like vampires and werewolves and otherworldly creatures in Victorian London, I think. And it sounds amazing. Like I heard the plot, like she was talking about it, and I was immediately on Amazon clicking my wish list. Number 18 is The Blade Itself by Jo Abercrombie, and I'll be honest, like this is probably the one book that I'm least looking forward to, and I don't know for sure if I will actually read it, but I'm putting it on the list because I kind of want to read it, because Jo Abercrombie, for as a number of you might know already, is a really famous fantasy author, and a lot of people have spoken about his books, but I feel like I don't really know that I am in the mood for that kind of darkness. But I don't know where I'll be in 2021. Maybe I'll feel like I'm in a better place and I'll be open to, opening myself up to different kinds of feelings and maybe a little bit of darkness. I don't know. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. Kind of. Next up is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, and it sounds amazing. Like Romeo and Juliet in like the underworld, but also like Chinese. I love it. And also look at that cover. It's gorgeous. I'm not a cover queen by any stretch of the imagination, but sometimes I just look at these covers and I'm just like, I want, I need, gives it to me. Anyway, it's getting really great reviews, and I think I'm gonna have a good time reading it. So yeah, that one. Number 20 is Why Women Have Better Orgasms Under Socialism by Kristen Godsey, which is a book that has been on my TBR for quite a while now. I just haven't gotten around to it. Like I would have read it this year, actually, earlier this year, and then the pandemic happened and all my plans went for a toss, and I've just sort of crawled into this hole of fantasy and romance, and I haven't wanted to emerge from it. So I haven't read this, but I think I will want to read it next year. It just sounds really interesting, and it sort of relates to my master's thesis a little bit as well. So I don't know. Number 21 is Wolf Song by TJ Klune, and TJ Klune is one of those authors that half of BookTube talks about, and this particular book was recommended by Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life, and she loves it, like loves it. And I was like, oh, okay, because I wasn't really sure if I wanted to read The House on the Cerulean Sea, but everyone seemed to love it. So I was like, I feel left out. And then Crystal talked about this book, and I was like, oh, this sounds like something that I would read. So I'm really excited about this one. So those are my 21 books, but I have a bonus book because after I made my list, I added one more to the list because just before I started recording this video, somebody was like, oh, have you heard about this book called A Spark of White Fire by Sangu Mandana? And I hadn't, but it's apparently a science fiction retelling of the Mahabharata. Now, for those of you who are not Indian, you don't know this, but the Mahabharata is literally one of the best plots out there. It's about, this family, and it's up to all sorts of crazy things, and it keeps fighting, and people start doing all these weird things, and it's just epic. And every Indian and quite a bit of Southeast Asia knows the story. And I guess Mandana decided to do a science fiction version of it, which sounds awesome. And it's apparently one of the best books that has been published in its year, and everybody has been recommending it. I haven't even heard of it. Like, I literally just heard about it right before I started shooting this video. So I don't know where I was hiding. Deep in a pile of body strippers, probably. So these are some of the books that I am going to be reading in 2021. Let me know what you are interested in, and if you are interested in my list of mostly new authors who are being published in 2021, then check out my Bookstagram, where I'll be posting a few videos in the weeks to come. Thank you for watching, and let me know if there are certain books that you're looking forward to, because I am always on the lookout for new books to read. For more videos, please hit the subscribe button.